Hi, I'm Anka, and I'm an architect and CG generalist at Urban Studios. Today, we are back with the second video of our TechVid series. We will focus on the research and thought process needed in order to create a realistic 3D urban environment. First steps: coffee and brainstorming. We first defined the urban planning challenges, for instance, perception psychology. We designed our urban layout compressed to a miniature size for the demo level. This technique is often used in games. Some interesting examples here would be Watch Dogs, which takes place in a miniature San Francisco, or Spider-Man, which is inspired by Manhattan. We wanted to assure fluid driving, for which we exaggerated the street widths. This is something that needs to be considered for games only, of course. And we made sure that there are no super sharp corners in the streets. When it comes to the realism of the urban layout, we defined where the different usage areas could be, but we also made sure that they are nicely connected to one another. For instance, downtown will always have both skyscrapers and large to medium commercial buildings. Realism is also dictated by our content. Our library contains a lot of realistic buildings, but also a high amount of realistic assets. We used a subset of these to showcase in the demo. To better explain what we understand by urban usage areas and how we structured these, we have added here the urban layout that you can experience in the demo. Each color shows a different usage area: downtown, commercial, residential, and industrial. Green spaces are also presented here, as they also helped us subdivide the city layout. I will now go through some screenshots from the demo in order to show you how these usage zones look like. For instance, this is a screenshot from the downtown area. This area gets slightly intersected with a commercial zone, which further on includes from small to large commercial buildings. This is a screenshot from the residential area. Daily activities around the house create a large amount of small imperfections. It is exactly these details that have the power to tell a story, and therefore to make an entire urban planning look perfectly real. Therefore, the assets that we created for the residential area are different from the ones in commercial or industrial or downtown areas. But we will dive deeper in the creation of assets in one of our upcoming videos. The concept of light industrial zoning was also highly inspiring for our urban planning and asset creation, referring to the fact that residents may have studios or workshop spaces in or close to the buildings where they live. Defining the challenges also helped us generate a list of research questions. The ones that I will focus on here are strongly related to the creation of a realistic urban fabric for our demo. What it is that we want to showcase? We decided on a subset of our library, as mentioned previously, for both buildings and individual assets. What buildings, highways, or streets density do we need in order to create a realistic US city-inspired layout? What's the difference between the urban density in downtown versus suburbs? How do we create a transition between the urban usage zones? Where do we place green spaces and parks to help us underline the distinction between urban usage zones? With the help of some visual references, some of which I'm going to present in the next slides, we were then able to define our urban planning strategies and the relationship between streets, parcels, and green spaces. We are looking here at the residential area in Mississauga, a city next to Toronto, Canada, where we can clearly see a planned layout with an organic structure. Another residential area, this time in Vancouver, Canada, where we can distinguish between organic and grid-like layout. Here, we can also notice how the green spaces can help generate city block shapes. Here, we are looking at the imposing presence of the green area in New York, surrounded by a well-structured urban fabric. Further on, the large and detailed industrial areas in LA and San Francisco also helped us with the research for the independent assets, which will be discussed more in depth in one of the upcoming TechVids. Downtown San Francisco. The design of this urban fabric is fascinating to me, full of transitions between business centers, commercial areas, and even industrial zones. In the end, putting together all the conclusions from our research and collaging these together, We were able to generate a rather complex urban design that we further on projected on the top of a height map and then populated with buildings and assets from our internal library. For these design steps, we have used one of our favorite tools, namely CityNG. And this is how it looks like in Unity, our real-time software of choice for the demo. Here are some examples of how we generate industrial zones, residential, commercial, and downtown. On this slide, we are looking at the urban usage zones as planned, and further on, as they look like populated in Unity. I would like to take a short time here to explain what realism means for us, from macro to micro scale. We believe that realism is in the details, in the imperfections of the everyday life. This is what sells a story, how a building looks like after being interacted with, how assets look like after being used almost daily or impacted by weather changes, etc. Just like in the case of buildings and city layouts, assets also differ from one usage area to another, their qualities and characteristics having to adapt accordingly. Let's take a short look at some fun facts about populating the environment with assets. Our demo has a total of over 4,100 buildings, over 7,100 street lamps in the scene, about 300 bus shelters, and over 2,400 traffic lights. The total length of all the streets created for the demo is 155.6 kilometers. Next week, we'll present some technical features and fun facts together with optimizations that are included for real-time engines. Thank you for your time, stay tuned and don't forget to follow us.